Heir property, deed theft, and why structure is the difference between ownership and loss. Across the country, families are sitting on land that has been passed down for generations, land that represents sacrifice, survival, and legacy. But too often, that same land is at risk. Not because families don't care, but because the ownership is not structured. This is the reality of heir property. What is heir property? Heir property happens when land is passed down without a clear, updated ownership structure. Instead of one owner, dozens or even hundreds of heirs may each hold a fractional interest. Everyone owns something, but no one fully controls anything. Over time, this creates confusion. No single decision maker, no clear documentation of all heirs, shares constantly changing as families grow. What starts as family land becomes legally vulnerable land. Why deed theft becomes easy. Without structure, the door is left open for exploitation. Here's how it happens. 1. Fractional ownership confusion. When ownership is divided into fractions, many heirs don't fully understand what they own. That confusion can be used against them. 2. Targeting a single heir. A bad actor doesn't need the whole property. They only need to convince one heir to sell their share, often for far below value. 3. Forced sales and partition actions. Once an outside party owns even a small fraction, they can push for a partition sale. That can force the entire property to be sold, even if the majority of the family wants to keep it. 4. Lack of documentation. If heirs are not clearly identified and recorded, fraudulent claims and forged documents become harder to challenge. 5. Dormant land equals easy target. Land without active management or structure is often viewed as abandoned or unclaimed, making it a prime target for deed theft schemes. The truth is simple. Without an heir structure, ownership exists, but protection does not. The real problem: no heir structure. Heir property is not the problem by itself. The problem is the lack of structure around it. When there is no system to identify and confirm all heirs, track ownership fractions, document decisions, establish unified control, the land becomes fragmented and vulnerable. How FRFT changes the equation. The Freedmen Reparations Fund Trust was built to solve this exact problem, not by taking land, but by bringing structure to it. 1. Status-based verification. FRFT identifies and confirms rightful heirs through documented records. This removes uncertainty and establishes clarity in ownership. 2. Fractional clarity. Every heir's share is documented and understood. No confusion, no guesswork. 3. Structured participation heirs can choose to place a portion of their fractional interest into the trust, not the whole property, just their portion. This creates collective strength without removing individual ownership. 4. Protection through organization. When land is organized under a structured system, unauthorized transfers become easier to detect, fraudulent claims are easier to challenge, outside interference becomes harder to execute. 5. Unified decision-making power. Instead of scattered voices, the family gains coordinated structure. This reduces the risk of one person undermining the entire property. Why this matters. Without structure, land sits vulnerable, families are divided, wealth is lost. With structure, ownership is protected, families stay in control. Land becomes an asset, not a liability. This is not just about property. It is about generational stability. The bottom line: heir property without structure is one of the easiest targets for deed theft in the country. Not because families are careless, but because the system was never designed to protect unstructured ownership. FRFT provides what has been missing: documentation, organization, protection, strategy. When structure is in place, everything changes. The land is no longer exposed, the family is no longer divided, and the legacy is no longer at risk.